Hello and welcome to the next StableNet Snapshot video. Today's topic is StableNet workflow jobs. We're going to look at some of the standard workflow jobs that get shipped out with StableNet 10 and how they can help you to simplify and customize specific workflows for your company. Workflow jobs are sort of plug-in. They can be compared to external measurements of StableNet. Many of you may have already seen or know the external measurements in business process scripts. Workflow jobs work in a similar way in that they rely on external scripts just like the external measurements. Workflow jobs rely on external data, external script files. And today I'm going to present to you 4 examples of ready-made workflow jobs that come bundled with StableNet 10. And in the video coming next, in a couple weeks, I'll present a specific workflow for one of our customers that we put together to serve as an example of a more sophisticated application of workflow jobs. As I already said, workflow jobs rely on workflow job files, which are in fact standalone jar files, JAR files. And you can see the current workflow job jar files by going to Configuration and Change, scrolling down to workflow job files. As you can see here, I have currently 4 different workflow jobs. Well, I actually have 5 in the list, but the 5th one is special. We'll get to that later. So I have 4 jobs currently in my installation, and I'm going to explain those today. In order to create a workflow job, as I already said, you need this file. And this file is provided by Infosim. So if you have a specific workflow which you think could be helpful for your use case, then feel free to contact us and we'll help develop the workflow job with you. This makes the most sense because it can be quite complicated and it makes sense to have a helping hand. And the StableNet developers are happy to do that for you. In order to create a new workflow job, you go to the device automation theme. And in the tab of Jobs and Process Management, you can already see that I have 2 workflow jobs created. To create a new one, you open your Job Select Workflow job, press Next, and then it's a typical job wizard, which you already know. And we're aware already this loading screen does take a little bit longer. This has already been addressed for the next service release of 10.1, so that's already been fixed. So I just go quickly through the wizard here. There are normal schedule settings of jobs, which are all job types, but we're not going to go into detail about that. Then for every workflow job, you can select devices with the normal device selection panel, which is normally done with tag filters, and the matching devices are then passed to the workflow job upon execution. This means that every time the job is executed, the device selection tag filters are evaluated and the current list is passed to the job. It depends on the job type whether this list is used or not. Certain jobs don't need devices or they use devices in a different way. And now comes the most interesting part about the workflow job wizard, which is selecting the actual workflow job file. You can do this via the combo box here, and it displays all the different available workflow job files, which I've already shown before. And this, beside the file, you also have to select a user by whom this workflow job is executed, which is also a nice feature because you can have different rights and permissions for 2 different workflow types of the same file. The ACI discovery generation workflow is one example of a more complex workflow job. I'm not going to go into detail here, but the workflow job will create discovery CSV files based on the inputs you made about your ACI system. And these CSV files can then, of course, be used in discovery jobs. They'll always be up to date when you run the workflow job at certain intervals, and a new discovery file will be created, and then discovery can be carried out with the updated file. The second job we've shipped with StableNet is the Service Database Import Workflow. This workflow job takes inputs for database variables along with our service domain, and will import services from the database variables and into StableNet, which is similar to the ACI workflow job because it also connects to an external resource, fetches data, interprets them, and then imports them into StableNet. Then we have the Vulnerability and EOX workflow job. This workflow job also connects to an external resource. In this case, it's the StableNet community portal. There we have updated vulnerabilities for Cisco, Juniper, and Lantronix. And these vulnerabilities and EOX data is updated about once a week, at least every 2 weeks. And you can use this job to download the vulnerability data into your system on a frequent basis and always have the latest vulnerabilities and EOX data in your system. However, you do need to have a special subscription in order to access the vulnerability and EOX data. If you feel like you want this and you don't have it, please contact your support or sales contact for more details about offers and pricing. As an example of how this can look, I've already created a vulnerability import job, and you can see here that this vulnerability import job will run today in the morning. And it imported Cisco vulnerabilities info commands and Juniper and Lantronix data to the StableNet installation. This means that next time I run my vulnerability or EOX jobs, I will get results based on the new data. Then the last job, as I've already said, we had 4 jobs. This is the last job, is the job execution chain. I've already created this one, but before I show you how the configuration looks like, I want to explain the use case behind the job. And therefore, I've prepared a little weather map, and my use case is the following. I want to discover certain devices, and these devices are either switches or routers. And after the discovery, I want to configure the switches and routers, and I want to do this with 2 different jobs, because the syntax of the devices will vary greatly, and I don't want to use the same job for that. After all the configurations are run successfully, I want to do a backup, and backup can be done by one job afterwards because the StableNet backup job doesn't rely on the Windows. And after that, I want to do a policy check whether the configuration was actually successful. And again, this has to be done with different jobs because of the different types of devices. And without these workflow jobs that we've set up, it's really difficult to accomplish this. So these workflow jobs really do simplify this use case. So in order to do that, I've already created the configuration jobs here and here, the discovery job and the backup job. I also have created 4 tag filters, and the discovery tag filter matches the discovery of the configuration job. The router lab configuration matches both of the configuration jobs, the one job for Cisco and the one for routers and the one job for switches. The backup job matches exactly the one backup job, and the policy check matches both the switches and routers job. So now I can come back to the configuration of the workflow job execution chain. I give the different tag filters and the job now executes every tag filter in parallel, but we'll wait on executing the next tag filter until all previous jobs have finished successfully. So this means first discovery will be run, then it waits, then it will run all the other jobs matching the lab configuration, and we'll wait until they're finished, and so on. So now I can start this job. You see here it's running, and at the same time, there's a discovery job, which is also currently running and discovering, I think in total 8 devices. While it runs, I can show you how the results look like. So let's see, the job hasn't been finished yet, but this is the result. We'll see in a minute on the currently deployed job. We see that we have 4 batches of jobs, and here we see the jobs which have been executed in parallel for every one of the batches. And yeah, the interesting thing here to notice, if one of the job fails, all of the jobs will be aborted. So I've simulated this down here. You can see that one configuration didn't succeed, and in the result, the whole job was aborted, and the subsequent jobs that matched the filters weren't executed. And this output format can be customized for every workflow job file. So for example, if you have a workflow job which needs a result of one specific format, this is also possible. You just need to ask. We'll help you set that up. As I already said at the top, the entire process will be aborted if there's any error. However, in the upcoming StableNet version, we've included a flag which lets you ignore errors. And then if an error does actually happen, you get a message in the result of the job, but the subsequent jobs are still executed. One last thing about the jobs, the workflow jobs use in part the StableNet REST API, though in order to use that, for example, the job execution chain workflow, you need the REST API license for jobs. And the other workflow jobs have similar restrictions. So if you're in doubt, feel free to ask us, our sales support. And if you've seen this job and think, wow, it's nice, but a little bit cumbersome to customize for our specific use case because it is so generically configured, Remember, these are just the standard workflows that are shipped out with StableNet. Feel free to ask us, and we'll happily get in touch and help you develop and customize your workflow jobs with you. The standard jobs are kept relatively basic in order to accommodate multiple use cases. And yeah, this brings me to next month's topic, because for the next video, I'll present a little more sophisticated workflow, job, which we've already done for one of our customers, and really gives you an idea of what you can accomplish with these workflow jobs in a more advanced fashion. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch our video on standard workflow jobs in StableNet. And please feel free to have a look at our other snapshots and tutorials here on YouTube as we continue pushing out new content. And have fun with StableNet. Bye.